All right, now we get to the interesting part, the server economics, aka the money. For those of you who are into business, you're probably used to projections and estimates. For everyone else, don't worry, this is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to run some numbers and see what things actually cost in the real world. Well, let's say we're going to run our application for 3 years. That's probably a good time frame to compare things, right? Because some costs are upfront and some are monthly. It gives us an apples to apples comparison. So the first option is you run your own servers at your home. You buy a small machine, maybe something like a Lenovo Tiny. Let's say it has 4 CPU cores, 16 gigs of RAM, and 320 gigs of storage. That's honestly plenty for a lot of projects. Blogs, small web apps, some application, even some moderate traffic sites. For that Lenovo Tiny, it probably cost around $180. I think that would be in the secondhand market. So for over 3 years, your total cost is $180 upfront over 36 months. And if you divide $180 by 36, you're looking at around $5 a month. It's pretty cheap, right? But remember, you're also responsible for setting it up, maintenance, fixing things when it breaks. That's time and effort. If the power goes out, your server goes down. If the hard drive fails, you lose data unless you have backups. Technically, it's cheap in dollars, but more expensive in terms of your own time. Now, the second option is renting a VPS or a virtual private server from a server or a cloud provider. Let's say you have the same specs: 4 CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, 320 gigs of storage, but it's someone else's hardware in someone else's data center. Different providers charge very different prices. For Hetzner, which is popular in Europe, it's around 30 euros a month. For AWS Lightsail, which is Amazon's simpler VPS offering, it's about $83 a month. For Google Cloud, it is going to be around $130 with the similar specs. So the prices vary a lot depending on the cloud provider or the server provider and what's included. With a VPS, you will get a very predictable monthly cost. You know exactly what you're paying for every month. No surprises, no unexpected spikes. That's technically very nice for budgeting. But over 3 years, those monthly costs adds up. That 30 euros from Hetzner, it becomes over 1,000 euros over 3 years. The AWS one, it becomes nearly $3,000. You're basically paying more in the long run, but the trade-off is you don't have to deal with the hardware. You don't have to deal with the security, the networking, the uptime, the electricity. You just pay for your server and you're ready to go. Now, the third option is going to be serverless. This one's a little bit complex, it's a little bit different because you don't rent the whole computer, you don't rent the whole server, you just pay for what you use. So let's make some reasonable assumptions. Let's say you get about 1 million web requests a month, and let's say you have 1 million app requests, maybe API calls or background jobs, and your database gets around 50,000 reads, writes, and also maybe deletes per day. On Google Cloud with Cloud Run for your application and Firestore for your database, that would come out to roughly $40 a month. Honestly, that's actually pretty cheap. You also don't have to manage anything, no operating system updates, no security patch, no hardware failure. It's scalable, it scales up and down automatically based on your traffic. But here's the thing, the $40 a month for the serverless sounds great in paper, maybe even cheaper than a VPS depending on the provider. But here's the trap, with serverless you pay per request. More requests equals more money. And that's actually fine when things are normal, but what happens when your code has a bug? And here's the thing about softwares. Bugs are just naturally part of the process. They happen to everyone, including me, including the pros. It's not a matter of if you have bugs, but when will you have bugs? Now imagine if you write a React component with a use effect that calls a certain API, ideally just one time, but it could happen multiple times. If you've done any React development, you knew exactly what I'm talking about. It's probably a classic mistake. It creates an infinite loop. In a normal server, that infinite loop would just crash your app or max out your CPU. Uh, Basically, it's annoying but fixable. Your server might become unresponsive, it could crash, but you're not losing money, you're just losing time because you have to reboot your server. In serverless, that infinite loop means you have infinite requests coming in, and infinite request means you have an infinite bill. And I've seen a lot of horror stories of people waking up to thousands of dollars in their cloud bill because of a simple bug. I've been there myself. It's not fun. So, serverless is great until it's not. You have to be careful. Set up billing alerts, watch your matrix, monitor your usage, because the same flexibility that makes it awesome can also bite you hard if you're not paying attention. So, those are the numbers. Each option has trade offs. There's no single right answer. It depends on what you're building, how much traffic you expect, and how much time you want to spend on maintenance.